And howdy, howdy, howdy. How's everybody doing tonight? And thank you for joining us here on Sunday night for our Three Can Keep a Secret podcast, where we discuss true crime, cold cases, um, just events that have happened that really raise a lot of questions. And as always, let's bring in our co-host for this. Number one, coming to us from down in Florida, a man who's been working on YouTube for quite a while right now, and someone we just recently brought into the fold and has become a good friend of all of us here. Please welcome our good friend Joey C. How we doing,
Welcome,
Joey?
John. Thank you for that introduction. Hello, everybody out in the chat room. How are you doing today?
Oh, thank you so much for being here. We
Oh,
really
love it.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's you bring that different twist to things that help make it that much more
Thank
of
you.
an entertaining and an educational kind of program. So thank you for being
Absolutely.
here. And as always, coming from Clearwater, Buffalo, he is the man with the plan. He has a weather report as always. Please welcome our good friend Clearwater Chad. How we doing,
Thank you
brother?
very much, guys. Great to see you as always. 48 degrees in Clearwater, Buffalo. In Buffalo, 0% precip, guys. The wind is at 9, and it's 54% humid.
All right.
All
Well, I
right,
wish
thank
it was
you, sir.
54%
Appreciate it.
here. That'd be great.
So, all right, Chad, I know you've heard about it, but Joey, have you heard of a young lady by the name of Lisa McPherson?
To be honest with you, John, when you first brought it up to me, I did never have heard of her.
Okay, well, Lisa McPherson was a longtime member of the Church of Scientology,
Okay.
and she was starting to develop some issues that appeared to be clearly psychiatric or psychological issues. And instead of treating her psychologically with having her go see a psychiatrist, psychologist, a social worker, counselor, any of those, it was deemed that she was suffering from something called Lyme disease,
I heard of
and
that.
that she was put on treatment for that. And then unfortunately, one day she was found in I believe it was a hotel room, and she was found severely dehydrated, and she had passed due to a pulmonary embolism, which I believe it was pulmonary embolism, a blood clot in the lungs.
Okay.
And, it raised a lot of questions about it. And, a lot of people have been, very much interested in how she passed, what happened with it. But once you start hearing the story of how Scientology interfered with this whole thing, I think uh, it's really going to play up on what you think about Scientology and how they've done things.
Right.
So, uh, and John, yeah, Lyme disease can cause problems, but the issue is that I have yet to see a report from an actual coroner that tested the blood and everything that said that she actually had Lyme disease.
Wow.
So it's
How long has she passed since she's passed?
She passed away I think it was December 1st, 1995. Give me one
So
second.
this is a
No,
very
December 5th, 1995.
Sounds about right, yeah.
She passed. So it's one of those issues. She was a beautiful young lady who, it seemed like she had the world at her feet. And then next thing you know, they find her in a hotel room, severely dehydrated, and had passed away it actually took a while to find out what had actually caused her passing, and the lengths that Scientology went to try to make this seem like it was something else is just ridiculous. There's someone who is a former Scientologist who's been pretty big in the anti-Scientology world, who actually in an interview just recently was talking about another incident where we're talking about a child SA that had occurred. And his defense for it was, I couldn't have been there because I was in Coldwater dealing with the Lisa McPherson case.
Oh,
Yeah. So we'll start off on this. And basically I'll just give you the rundown. She was born on February 10th, 1959. She was a Scientologist. She died in the care of the Church of Scientology in Clearwater, Florida. She had been in a minor traffic accident, and it seems as though she was unharmed in the incident. But after the crash had occurred, she removed all of her clothes, uh, in the street, and the paramedics had to transport her to the hospital. And in order to stop her from getting psychiatric intervention, local Scientologists convinced her to leave the hospital and seek care at a nearby Church of Scientology flag service organization. Now, being near Clearwater, have you ever seen Flag down there, Joe?
I mean, as far as the Scientology, I've seen everything downtown that they pretty much have down there. So yeah.
Okay. Well, you know the big Fort Harrison Hotel down there?
Yes.
It's right across the street from there. It's that
Yes,
big
I've seen
opulent
it. Yes,
building
I have
across
seen
the
it.
street.
Yes.
Yeah. So they convinced her they convinced her to leave a hospital and go to Flag, that building there. I don't quite understand what the purpose of, removing her from the hospital was to send her to Flag. I mean, clearly it may not have even been a psychological problem at that point. She could have been concussed. There could have been anything that happened. She could have had bruising to the brain, just from a minor accident. Those things happen. And she would have needed medical care other than psychological or psychiatric care from those kinds of things. But no, they convinced her to leave the hospital and they took her to Flag. She was held there, and the claim is she was held there for 17 days against her will, not given any medical care, and her physical and mental health just started rapidly deteriorating while she was there, and ultimately she passed away. It's really interesting that these things happen in the way that they did. You had one medical examiner who was watching there you go, T. Basically, instead of seeking psychiatric care, their services could take care of it. And if you're familiar with Scientology at all, they're very anti-psychiatry or psychology.
Okay.
Anything to do with mental health is a big no-no. I personally believe that it comes from this. Let's see. Couch Broccoli, I was up here working in Michigan as a police officer. I didn't even know anything about it back then. But, back in the day when L. Ron Hubbard wrote Dianetics, he submitted it to the American Psychiatric Association for accreditation, and they rejected it. And a lot of people have said that it's basically they had taken a Sigmund Freud treatment plan that Freud had put together, which he ultimately stopped because he found that it made the patient too dependent upon the person who was giving the treatments. And it created a very dangerous situation for both the patient and for the person giving the treatments to him. And after he was turned away by the American Psychiatric Association, that's when he started with this huge hatred of psychiatrists, psychologists, anyone who deals with mental health, and has been, Scientology's been on a tirade against it ever since then. So, do you ever see the Tom Cruise interview where he literally goes after Matt Lauer, telling him
I might have watched. I might have seen it. To be honest with you, I don't recall 100%, but there's a possibility I did because I watch a lot of stuff about Tom Cruise as much as I can. So,
well, it's the one where they were talking about Brooke Shields and
yes, I think I did see that one,
medications and things like that. And he went off on Matt Lauer, basically telling him he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's uneducated on these things. Of course, Tom Cruise, we all know he has what? How many PhDs does Tom Cruise have, Chad?
At least 3.
Wow. I know he's very educated and very involved in
no, he doesn't. He might have some honorary PhDs, but he's like most Hollywood celebrities. He thinks he knows everything, but how much does he really know about the real world? He spends most of his time being told how perfect it is.
Right.
There you go. Couch Broccoli. Yeah, him and John Travolta think they're gods.
Yep.
If you've heard anything like his recent outburst at one of the filmings, where he literally is telling them all how Hollywood basically wouldn't operate if it wasn't for him out there doing it. He's the one out there doing it every day. He's the one who's, he's just going off on people. Sins of Scientology. I'm gonna be getting into that about some of the things that they had going on with it. So,
sorry to cut you off, Paul. As for John Travolta, he was a good actor in the '70s. But Welcome Back, Kotter in Greece. Sure, I don't know what he's done since that.
Saturday Night Fever. I mean, he did some great movies in the '70s. Yes.
I liked some of the stuff that he was doing. I thought John Travolta had some did some good acting roles and things like that, but it just seemed like he turned into like a mimic after a certain point.
Yeah.
He seemed like he was more I don't know, it seemed like he really played off the Vinnie Barbarino kind of vibe in a lot of things, or he was just cartoonish is the best way I can describe how I feel.
I believe he was one of the actors that did make the $20 million movie list, where he made it per picture for a while there.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, he's
yeah.
been doing good money, and I mean, you got to think back in the '90s, he was pumping them out like you were getting candy out of a machine. He was just pumping movies out left and right. So, let's see.
I think Tom Cruise is up to Mission Impossible 37 or something, right?
By now, yeah. Imagine that. Yeah, he did a lot of them.
I mean, how many times is he going to save the world? It's like exactly. if you look back at the timeline, literally with all the money that's been made off the movies, they've spent something like $20 billion trying to save Matt Damon from space and all the different movies he's been in. So
exactly,
let's face it, none of them are going to be Keanu Reeves. They're not going to be on that level, but
maybe they're on the Stutter and John program. Maybe, I don't know.
There we go. So let's see. I'm going to pull up the first article. Let's see. Let me find which one I want to go with first here. But basically, these are from the Tampa Bay Times. The Tampa Bay Times has literally been the publication that has been going head to head with Scientology for a long time there. They've done a lot of things to try to get their reporters fired. They've done a lot of things to, just try to hurt the publication itself. And there have been some great writers who have done some amazing things. Not yet, Dom. I got my sinuses are absolutely blowing my head up right now. That's sad thing about it. I wish I did have some edibles before I started this, but no, it's my sinuses and allergies are just blown out tonight. So this first article is called "Distrust in Clearwater." It comes from the Tampa Bay Times, and it is from December 1st of 1997. Distrust in Clearwater, a special report. Death of a Scientologist heightens suspicions in a Florida town. Late on November afternoon, 2 years ago, 36-year-old Scientologist named Lisa McPherson was involved in a minor traffic accident. She was not injured, but she inexplicably stripped off her clothes and began to walk naked down the street. A paramedic rushed her into an ambulance and asked why she had taken off her clothes. Miss McPherson replied, "I wanted help. I wanted help." She was taken to a nearby hospital for psychiatric examination, but several Scientologists arrived and explained that their religion opposes psychiatry. Miss McPherson asked to leave, and against medical advice, she was released into the care of the Scientologists. 17 days later, after being kept under 24-hour watch at a Scientology-owned hotel in downtown Clearwater, Miss McPherson had passed. By church accounts, she had spit out food, banged violently on the walls of her room, and hallucinated. The county medical examiner said Miss McPherson was deprived of water for at least 5 to 10 days and died of a blood clot brought on by severe dehydration. Church officials denied responsibility for the death and challenged the medical examiner's findings. But the image of a woman who appeared healthy and successful, slipping into dementia and passing away inside the Church of Scientology's flagship building here has rekindled deep suspicions in this serene retirement community, which for 2 decades has been the unlikely spiritual headquarters of one of the world's most debated churches. Since moving here in 1975, Scientology has bought $32 million worth of property, mostly downtown. Its 1,000 staff members are seen on every downtown corner in their distinctive naval-type uniforms. Its parishioners own dozens of businesses, and devotees come from around the world each year to take upper-level Scientology courses, only available in Clearwater. Despite its efforts to join the mainstream, the Church of Scientology has never completely overcome the distrust and fear generated by its clandestine arrival in Clearwater more than 20 years ago. Only later was it discovered that Scientology had come here with a written plan to take control of the city and silence anyone who got in its way. Today, although the plan failed, suspicions run so high that police assign an intelligence officer to monitor the organization, and detectives are now concluding a 2-year criminal investigation into Lisa McPherson's death.
Wow.
This is what,
even as it illuminates
when she passed, right?
What's that?
She was 36 when she passed, and this was like Almost
This
29 years ago, about basically, right?
Yeah, this is 1995,
Okay.
December 5th. Even as it illuminates the church relationship with its Gulf Coast city, an examination of Miss McPherson's life and death, including a review of church records and other documents from a lawsuit filed by her family, also offers an unusually rich look into the world of one Scientologist. It shows how virtually every aspect of her life, work, friendships, relationships, and family members, even choices on vacation spots, were influenced by the church. It also shows the financial demands Scientology places on its members and the tremendous value to the church of the landmark decision by the Internal Revenue Service in 1993 to grant tax-exempt status to Scientology. Miss McPherson worked as a sales representative at a publishing business owned by Scientologists and spent so much of her salary on church courses she had to borrow from her employer to keep up with her studies in church doctrine. According to documents provided to the New York Times by lawyers for the family, she was able to deduct the payments for those courses from her taxes, but when she got her refund from the federal government, it was turned immediately over to her employers to pay for more courses. What kind of church is this? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Have you guys tell me one church where everything that you do with a church you have to pay for?
Yeah.
Right. It's the opposite of a church.
I mean, how many churches literally make you go through courses pretty much every day of the week, and they make you pay for every one of those courses that you're going to?
None that I know of.
No.
I've never seen anything like it. I mean, every religion that I know of, they offer you the services for free and hope
Right.
that you donate to the church to help keep it moving.
Right. You become a member and you get involved with the community, but that's totally up. They leave that up to you. So
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Since receiving tax-exempt status, Scientology has waged a campaign to persuade members to increase contributions and take advantage of the deduction. For 25 years, the IRS had considered Scientology a commercial enterprise, refused to give it tax exemption granted to churches. The refusals had been upheld by every court. The agency reversed its position after a campaign by the church that involved lawsuits, use of private detectives to investigate IRS officials, and a meeting between the church leader and the IRS commissioner in 1991. That the kind of cojones they've got, that they literally started going out and going after the high-ranking members of the IRS and attacking them. There were ads placed in newspapers and magazines, literally saying just horrible, degenerate things about people within the IRS, things that couldn't be proven, but they were all they're all put there in the form of questions. So everybody thought that, it wasn't making a statement. He made a statement without making a statement, basically. It's like, Chad, why do you drink so much beer?
I know, right?
It's not a matter that Chad drinks beer or that
Right.
how much that he drinks. It's a matter that now I'm calling it into play as you drink a lot of beer.
Correct.
It's like some of the people who put into the chat, asked Joey why he ran in a certain parade in 1981.
Right.
He
Right.
didn't do it, but it makes
Yeah,
everybody
exactly.
think, oh, really? Did Joey do that?
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of things, like the one person, where was I at when this happened? And the Brent, the thing is that I don't know about the Mormons, the Jehovah's Witnesses. I am looking into that. I've got some people who are former Jehovah's Witnesses that I'm looking into how they actually operate. I mean, they're just as secretive, if not more secretive, than Scientology. So, that's they literally went at the head of the IRS. I mean, how many people have the cojones to go after the director of the IRS?
Yeah. It's,
Right. Right. I
You
guess in addition to that, I guess I think they sued the IRS agents personally too, like over 2,000 of them.
really.
I think there was something like I think it was somewhere around the lines of 1,200 lawsuits against the IRS alone.
Yeah.
And it was just person after person after person. And what they're basically trying to do was bankrupt the IRS to take it down. I mean, I've
Wow.
never seen anything like. Joey, you've dealt with the feds. I've dealt
I
with the
have.
feds.
Yeah. Yeah. They're
Would you ever have the balls to go after the feds like that?
John, I'll tell you what, I've done a lot, made my mistakes in life, but I've never misfiled my income tax because
Hell
I
no.
heard when they crawl to you, they don't just sit you down and have a friendly conversation. They crawl through every orifice that you have,
Yep.
like a fine tooth comb, like a microscope, and you don't want that. They'll take everything from you. They don't care about what happens to you. They don't care about taking you away from family. It's not about the
Absolutely.
jail time. It's about what they can do to destroy your life for messing with them. And that's what it's
Absolutely.
about. You
You
know,
know, I mean, they're not supposed to, but it seems like that they take everything as an affront and a personal attack
right?
on how things are done.
Yeah.
You know, I'll give you a great story about it. This was 10 years ago. Our accountant got their computer system got hacked, and there was somebody out of Texas who had taken all of there were like 137 of us that they stole the information for our tax returns. They stopped them from actually filing with the IRS.
Mhm.
They then turned around, changed the addresses on everything, and filed under our names with these amended tax returns. We get a tax return in the mail for something like $13,000. I'm like, oh, why are we getting so? We're only supposed to be getting like, you know, $2,000 back. Why are we getting such a high return? And I'm one of those that every paycheck, because I was always worried about we never paid enough in taxes during the year that we were going to
You have to pay at
get
the
hit
end,
with
yeah.
a payment at the end of the year. So I
Yeah.
always had $50 extra from my paycheck put towards my taxes. And that way at the end of the year, if there was anything over the top that didn't get covered while we were, during the year, then we would get that money back or it would cover it.
Yeah.
So there was no way we were supposed to get this high amount back. So then we get the notice from our accountant that they had been hacked and that we needed to contact the IRS. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Why in the hell aren't you contacting the IRS? It's your system. There's 137 of us. Why aren't you doing it? But no, well, we're so sorry this happened and we've changed up our system and all that. Oh, thank you. Well, you'll never get another dime from me.
Yeah.
So we contact the IRS and say, hey, look, we got this check. This was filed fraudulently. We filed all the stuff for identity theft with all the agencies and everything. We need to get this check back to you. They made us go to an IRS office to give them that check back. And we had to go through essentially an audit because we were trying to do the right thing.
Right. I'll tell you the one thing, John, that feds do. When you're being under the microscope, being investigated, they don't shut you down for whatever you're trying to do. They let it all go through. They let you get the money. They want you to spend that money. They want you to cash that money. That's what they do to build their case because they'll keep sending it, and because you don't think there's no suspicion on you. And they usually take about the average of 3 years of feds on any case, and then they come in and hit you. And now they got you because you cashed them. It went in your bank account, whatever you done, and you spent the money. Just like if you didn't return that and you didn't do nothing, you had nothing to do with that check coming in your house, and you didn't do the right thing. They could have brought you up on charges if you would have took that check, put it in your account, and just said, okay, must be a gift from the IRS. But people do make those mistakes, and it's sad because some people are really not up to par of what they should do when it comes to situations like that. So
absolutely. And Jan, how many times have you been audited now?
Almost every year, Paul.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what
No,
I thought.
kidding.
Yeah,
No,
you're kind of shady a little bit. I got to worry about you. I'm not giving you my social security number.
No, same deal. When the IRS, if they say I did my taxes wrong, that's the fastest check I write back to them because that's the one person I'm not going to argue with.
Well, I'm going through something right now. I didn't tell you guys before. And I just recently found out. Did you know that since the pandemic, there's been a lot of IRS scams of people these different fronts filing in your name? Well, I went into how you get the report every year when the income is reported to your Social Security, and there was last year a tax return filed that I made $45,000. I've been retired for 10 years.
Yeah.
And I called the IRS, and I guess they said we thought it was under suspicion. They did file the check. We stopped the check. I'm glad you noticed it. Now I got to fill out all these forms. I want to get that tax return to see who maybe I can see, where it led to. So the only way I can get it, even though it was filed in my name, use my name, my Social Security, everything about me they knew. But there was some discrepancies that made the IRS knew there was a problem somewhere, and they were trying to contact me. So I just happened to notice it on my Social Security statement. And I called them, and they go, "Good thing you called it. We did notice it was kind of fraudulent. We didn't process it, but here," I go, "Well, you're not in trouble. Thank God you called." But I go, "Can I see that?" They go, "The only way you can see that, now I got to go through all these steps just to see this. Maybe I could see if somebody I knew, or where it came from. I'm hoping that I could pin it down to find out who did this to me." So, but I got this problem going on now. So,
Yeah, Matt Cox has talked about that scam on his show. He said basically what they do is they'll file taxes in your name before you do it that year and just pretend like it's them or you.
And that's a real thing that goes on. When I went through the I actually went through the FBI school for identity theft and internet fraud, and that was a big thing about how they find ways to hack into these different systems, stop your return from going to the IRS, taking it, amending it, and then putting their address and their accounts into there, and then they'll send that in, and hopefully, the IRS will send it to their account. Thankfully for us, the IRS got it, and the IRS is like, "No, the address we have on hand is this address. They haven't put in anything formal in with us that would suggest that we have to change it."
Right.
But the thing is that what amazed me was we were doing the right thing, and we were doing it the way that they wanted us to do it, but yet we got treated like criminals, like we were being audited just for doing the right thing.
Correct.
And I think that shows the mentality of the IRS that everybody's a criminal until you clear them. Right. And that's kind of a bullshit way of looking at things, considering that we're in a country that you're innocent until proven guilty, but you have this agency that creates its own rules that you can go to jail for.
Yes.
Who the hell elected them to write rules that you go to jail for? Only people who are legislature are the only people who should be able to do that.
To them, you're guilty, and you got to prove yourself innocent. That's how it's the reverse than what the Constitution says. So
absolutely. That's why our Constitution was written the way it was, so that because people were coming from other countries where you were considered guilty until you proved yourself innocent. So that's why it was written that you were innocent until proven.
That's right.
And but of course, bureaucracy always takes the front seat on stuff. So, all right, getting back into this. The financial pressure on members of Scientology is one reason critics worldwide describe the church as a cult and a money machine, intended to bilk the faithful who paid large sums to undergo counseling sessions. This is the primary reason given by the German government for refusing to recognize Scientology as a religion. Beyond the financial issues, the circumstances surrounding Miss McPherson's death raise questions about whether the church's handling of their medical treatment, particularly its failure for I can't even pronounce that shit. To provide psychiatric care contributed to her death. For their part,
philosophical or something? Philosophical reason?
Yeah, philosophical. Yeah, I'm for some reason I am not able to read today. For their part, church officials and lawyers said the death was accidental, a result of an undetected blood clot. They accused the police of a vendetta, said the police would not have investigated Miss McPherson's death were she not a Scientologist. Joey, Chad, either one of you current or former Catholics?
I was raised Catholic. I was.
Same here.
Have you ever shown up for confession and the priest told you, you want to make confession, I need $30 from you?
No.
Nope.
I mean, this is why I consider this not one of the reasons why I consider this not a religion. Religions are supposed to be for the betterment of mankind, and they're not supposed to be there to collect revenue from you. Right. A lot of people complain, you get the preachers up there going, hey, you need to put more money in the coffers and all that, but they're not demanding it. They're not demanding you can't come in and sit through a church service if you don't pay them. Yeah. This is absolutely ridiculous, because when you do something like that, you turn it from focusing on the aspects of the religion and what it's supposed to be doing into an actual business. And I think that the German government did an amazing job when they stood up against it and they weren't allowing all that BS to continue.
Yeah, I was lucky
So
for the Catholic Church to get to compare that they were nice at some area. Because if you ask me today what I think of the Catholic Church, I'll tell you
yeah.
racket, racket, racket.
Well, I
So
mean, let's look. Think about how many billions, if not trillions, of dollars of antiquities are stored in the Vatican, in the vault of the Vatican, that they should
yes,
never have their hands on.
exactly.
There are places in the Vatican we can never get to,
That's
and
true.
only certain people will ever be allowed to look into those things.
Yep.
To me, that has a lot of the similarity with the Church of Scientology, where they're building up massive amounts of wealth that they hide away from everybody, and that they can flip in a heartbeat to create more revenue for the
Yeah.
leaders of the church.
You're right about
So,
that. That's for sure.
Right.
I mean, you look down in South America, when I was in Colombia, and everybody there is dirt floor poor.
Right.
Most of the people there are just barely scraping to get by.
True.
Then you come around a corner, and here's this 8-foot high wall, this beautiful stone wall that covers basically like 2 city blocks. And they have armed guards at every entrance to this place. And when I was talking to, we were there doing some stuff with, I can't remember if it was Animal Planet or who it was, but I was asking our guide, I go, who the heck lives there? And they're like, oh, well, that's the archdiocese for the Catholic Church.
Right.
The archdiocese driving around, and at that time it was a lot of money. It was like a $200,000 Mercedes limousine being chauffeur driven around, got armed guards with AK-47 standing at the gate 24 hours a day, while everybody else around that place is basically trying to figure out how they're going to feed themselves that night.
Yeah, exactly. Very true. I think the 2 things I hate. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, Jeff. The 2 things that I dislike about the Catholic Church is, one, for years and years, how they cover up the priests that have shamed or did harm to young men. Young men, young boys, I should say.
Children.
And they don't get brought to justice. They just wheel them away, put them in some mountain as a monk for the rest of their life, and they have nothing, no outside possessions. They live amongst each other, and they're living to be free and to die normally. And that's big mistake for Catholic Church in my eyes. And 2, they preach, but yet on weekends they'll have casino night in their church on Friday and Saturday, and then preach the sermon on Sunday, taking in money from illegal gambling. You know what I'm saying?
I mean,
So,
isn't that one of the things Jesus was known for when he went into the temple, turning over the merchants' tables, talking about how they had turned the church into a den of thieves?
That's right. That's very true.
I mean, that's the amazing thing. John says they charge me hundreds. Oh wait, where is it? Let's see. There it is. They charge me hundreds. My confessions are so long. The thing is that, as you look at those things, and I think there's a lot of comparisons between the Catholic Church and some of the things that have happened with Scientology. You look at, like you were saying, the priests who, instead of bringing them to justice and doing what they were supposed to do, they ship them off to some remote South American or some country somewhere where they have no extradition. They put them there in a church, never tell anybody why they were moved from, the big church in like Detroit or Chicago or something like that, and suddenly are in this tiny little church in the middle of nowhere. They don't tell anybody there, and they continue to be predators on the children there at that church. Nothing's done about it. Here it is. You have Miriam Francis, and you have other people whose stories have come out where they had friends, family members, associates within Scientology that were essaying them. And what does Scientology do? They move them out of the country.
Yeah.
And no one's allowed to talk about why that happens.
There's a rumor that I heard, John. I don't know. I can't say it's a fact because I didn't read it, but there's a rumor in Chicago that one of the oldest churches that was falling apart, that they, when they claim they have to close some things down because they don't have the funding, which I can't believe that. They're one of the richest rackets in the world, to not want to fix them. They tore this church down, and it's been told that construction workers underneath the church, buried below it, they found skeletons of newborn babies that were born in the church and then killed and buried under the church. So what are they saying? That the nuns got pregnant? because you know
Well,
they're not.
that was the original story I heard about that. I can't remember where it was, but it was actually a convent where that had happened. That's where
Okay.
the nuns live, and that's where they it's basically their home while they're serving as nuns, and then
Right.
convents period are where the nuns live. So when they were doing some kind of construction and they were digging down and they found the remains of infants.
Right.
And Indigo, yes, we could see you. But they found the remains of infants in the ground there. And it turned out that, there were nuns who had become pregnant and through relations with priests.
That's amazing.
And instead of, doing things the way that should have been handled properly, no, they hid it until the nun gave birth. And then they just quietly did away with the child and buried them into the grounds of the church.
That's flat out murder.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But and who went to jail from that? I don't know of anybody who ever went to jail for it. Not only do you have murder, you have the desecration of human remains, you have the failure to report, all these different things, all these different charges. It's not just one charge. There's so much that they could have charged so many people with, and nothing happened.
That's what it blows me away. I mean, that's a double life sentence for anybody with all them charges.
Yeah.
I know it's terrible. It sickens me very much.
But the thing is that that's the reality of religion and religious beliefs. People become so invested in it, it becomes so much a part of who they are that they literally, when someone challenges it's the war is on. They're ready to go to battle for it because you're not going to challenge my beliefs. So, and Brent says you only went to church for the free wine and bread. So,
all right.
So, all right, let's get on with this. Let's see. Echoing the same stance that they have taken in struggles with governments around the world, church officials said that days of covert attacks on critics of the church were long over. Oh, really, Chad? Were the attacks on critics of the church long over for us in Clearwater?
No, they're still alive, very live.
Yeah. And that Scientology simply wanted to be a good neighbor. Chad, I'm telling you that they're such a good neighbor. Not only has crime dropped in downtown Clearwater, there's nobody in downtown Clearwater, is there?
No, it's a ghost town.
Oh, Joe, you've seen it. You've been down there. We were down
I was down there not too long, a few months ago. I went just past it. I went down to the beach just to drive, and it was probably been better than probably was last year at some point. So it was about a little over a year ago, but it was hardly any businesses outside of Scientology business. What I seen,
I got to tell you, Clearwater Beach was gorgeous.
It is beautiful down there. Yes.
And downtown Clearwater, it has so much opportunity, but there's no one there.
Right. They own a lot of stuff down there. There's a lot of potential down there to do a lot of good with that. But there is definitely that. So
we were down there with Farrell Cheryl, Dusty, Sarasota Jerry, a lot of the Clearwater people down there. And they were just pointing out building after building after building owned by Scientology or Scientologists. And every one of them pretty much had nothing. There was nobody walking around. And what were there? Friday and a Saturday, or a Saturday and a Sunday, Chad?
Yeah, it was. I forgot if it was Friday or Saturday, something like that.
But these are the times I was talking about. At that time, it would have been close of winter here in Michigan. In downtown Ann Arbor, in that kind of district, there would have been hundreds, if not thousands, of people walking around, couples, families, everybody out just enjoying the downtown district in Ann Arbor. Yeah. And here you have Clearwater, Florida, and this is the time when everybody's down there to get away from the cold up north. That whole place should have been packed, and there was no one there.
I agree. I definitely agree. They lost a lot of tourism, I think, people going downtown that do come to Florida and visit. So,
want to kill a city? Have a church come in and take the city over. That's the easiest way to do it. Jeez.
And I believe they own everything from Fort Harrison, which is, or maybe even farther to Fort Harrison, maybe another mile past that, which would be, I'm not trying to think of the street. I don't know it offhand, but I know for sure Fort Harrison all the way to where the bridge is, going over the bridge to get to the beach, is pretty much everything in that area, block after block. They own everything now. I mean, they bought up everything. So,
Yeah, I was just amazed by the number of buildings that down
Yes.
there that were owned by Scientology or
Did you guys
Scientologists.
see that hotel when you guys were down there? Did you guys go to the fancy one you were talking, the Fort Harrison Hotel, which is a very was at one
Oh
time
yeah,
very classy hotel, very
yeah.
expensive.
We literally did live streaming right in front of the Fort Harrison, and when we walked, and Chad could tell you about this. What happened when we walked underneath that awning there at the Fort Harrison?
Under the was that where they blasted the music?
Yeah, they started playing copywritten music the minute that we started walking underneath
Really?
of the awning, and the minute that we got out from underneath the awning, the music turned off. But
And
Wow,
I
just
literally
want
had
to
to mute my live stream because of it.
that's wild.
I just want to add for anyone that doesn't. It's one thing to talk about it. If you guys have the means, definitely go down there. It's it's a lot more spooky in person when you see the cameras literally in the bushes and the PIs literally like with the vans and literally the hide in the bushes. It's really
Right.
really scary. It's eerie.
It's creepy.
You
I
know,
mean, it
and
is
Yeah.
creepy.
Indigo's ghost was saying it's a shame they bought the old Fort Harrison. And that was a beautiful building, and they're not
Was.
taking care of it. You
Yes.
look at it from a distance, say, 100, 200 feet away. You're like, wow, that place looks great. But the closer you get, the more it seems like it's something from like Disney or Universal,
Right.
whereas it's all a facade. From a distance, it looks like it's this great thing, but once you get up close, you start seeing all the cracks in the in the walls and things like that. We're going by Flag, their number one building in Scientology in Clearwater, and they have the double closing doors. There were gaps an inch and a half in between the two doors when they closed.
Right.
They had the windows covered over. You didn't need to do that because you could literally see right through the crack in the doors. It was that big.
Wow.
What kind of craftsman is doing that kind of work and thinks that it's okay to leave it like that?
Yeah.
And how much
Nobody
money
takes pride.
yeah, and how much money are they spending in the air conditioning and all that in that
Sure.
building when it's literally just blowing right out the doors like that? So yeah, Horatio McAllister, their numbers are dwindling worldwide. Thankfully, they've started trying to recruit people outside their normal target demographic. And Joey, we were just talking about this last night, folks. I've been talking about the fact I'm trying to go out and I want to confront this predator who fled the United States. I have been fortunate enough. I have made contact with several different government agencies. What I want to do is I want to get to these other countries to talk to them about human trafficking and then talk to them about the fact that their children are being recruited by Scientology, taken to other countries where they take their passports from them and basically make them work as indentured servants. And so that's some of the things I, trying to get going on here. But, just want to make sure, there's a lot to this, folks. It's not just what this church is doing to a singular person. They've realized that they can't continue to sustain their ranks here in the United States, in Canada, in Australia. So they go to these other countries where they are not as financially secure as the United States or Australia or Great Britain. And they say, hey, you want to go there? You want to go to America? You want to go to Australia? You want to go to Great Britain? You want to go to Canada? You come and you sign this contract with us. We're going to send you over there and you're going to live out this great life when you get there. Not knowing that they bring them in under basically a religious visa or something like that, get them into the country and then take their passports from them. And these people are essentially trapped and they force them to work ungodly hours every day. Welcome to the new world.
That's right. I had the pleasure, or not the pleasure, but I like I said, one of my off-season jobs, basically I drove a taxi for a lot of years. So I picked up one of those people that work. I guess they're the first entry level people that wear the black slacks and the white shirts. They walk around. You see, they're the workforce. That's all you see downtown. It's like an army. You see them all in flocks, and they're not. They work. I don't know how many hours a day. Their paychecks they never see. They get $50 a week allowance. This is what the guy was telling me. When he first entered, they told him he couldn't be married. He divorced his wife for Scientology. Couldn't see his kids anymore. They just, all that stuff. And they went to a pretty much a apartment complex that they made a fort that they made pretty much out of like a Fort Knox, where it's all, they got their buses there. They take them to the movies once a week. They're not allowed to date. They're not allowed to talk to people. And he said, it's just like you go to work, you go back to the apartment. and they bust you everywhere. If you want anything from outside, you got to give them a list. They get whatever you want. And I just thought, wow, who would want to live that life? I would never can see myself being under orders like that. I mean, that's great. That's my first time that I ever found out a little bit of what they're about. That was years ago.
Absolutely.
And that's what I knew, that was something wasn't right there, so.
Yeah, it's very accurate too.
Yeah. So
unfortunately.
And they're paying them, someone said 70 cents an hour.
Yeah.
But the fact is they're lucky if they get paid, period. And if they do, I think it's something like $47 a week is what they
I think it was $50 is what he told me. They got a $50 a week allowance is what they got.
That's what they claimed. And they say that they are religious volunteers.
Right.
And that's how they don't have to, they don't have to pay taxes on everything.
Yeah.
But, are these people having to pay taxes for the money that they're receiving from the church?
I don't know. I know they have the two complexes on Keene Boulevard, which is not far from downtown, and it's kind of in a used to be a kind of a rough neighborhood, so they obviously get the property cheap, fix it up a little bit, put concrete walls all around it. I mean, it's almost like a prison in there,
Well, you look at, there's a building right down 2 blocks down from Flag on the same side of the street. And that building is, the top 2 levels of that are basically, as I was told by, I think it was Dusty or by Aaron, that is where Tom Cruise lives when he comes to
really.
Yep. Got his own penthouse up there. Let's see, Horatio, Tom Cruise and the other Scientology celebrities are guilty of using slave labor. Horatio, let me tell you a story. There is someone, and I can't remember who told this. It was either Mark or Claire Headley had said the story about how Tom Cruise was walking around one of the big bases, I think Gold in California, and they were talking to, they're walking around and they're showing them all the great stuff and everything. And one of the Sea Org members comes up, salutes David Miscavige, says, "Hello, Mr. Cruise." That person got put into what's called the RPF, which is basically slave labor, busting bricks, busting rocks, digging trenches, those kinds of things. They literally put them in a work farm where they are, they're treating them like that. And the thing is that this person got put there simply for not saluting Tom Cruise. When Tom Cruise moved into a new home, they literally went in and they put in the most high-tech audio visual room. It's an entertainment room for Tom, where it had a full-size movie screen and movie style chairs and all that just for him. Scientology paid for all that with the money that they take from people for doing auditing, things like that, and they staffed it with Scientologists. So you've basically got people who are working as servants for Tom Cruise that are basically under what would be considered indentured servant status.
Absolutely.
So that's that religion of peace.
Yeah.
Do you guys mind if we read that last super chat? Because the guy said I'm not a real man if we don't read it.
Oh, let's see here. I put it up for a second, but it's attacking Joey's wife.
I know, but we know it's not true.
Well, here's the thing. First of all, this is not the show to talk about Stuttering John. This is not relevant. Number 2, Pocky, I don't owe you nothing. I don't have to address that. I'm more of a man you'll ever be. And you could believe, if John's got a problem, he's got my digits. Tell him to pick up the phone and call me. He won't, because he just won't. So that's my answer to that one.
Yep.
Yeah. And let's see here. Jay Warren, the new main recruits are from Eastern Europe or South America. Not just that, Jay, they are also coming from Southeast Asia as well. They have a very big stronghold in Taiwan. They've opened up a number of schools in Vietnam. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Thankfully, Russia, one of the few things they've done right is they've completely banned Scientology in Russia.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
Russia's known to ban a lot of things. There's a lot of things they don't let over there.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't play out there.
Horatio, just like with Horatio's question, I can't understand how anyone could fall for Scientology with everything on the internet. They're just like any other cult out there. I mean, you look at like the Remnant Church and goodness, T, I'll bring that up in a second. But you look at all these big, powerful cults that that come out of nowhere and they build into these huge organizations. They know how to play on people's needs.
Right.
A lot of people became disillusioned with things that happened within the Catholic Church, within Christianity, within other religions. They're looking for that supernatural, that spiritual, that religious answer to things. That's how these organizations are able to get them in. They play on your vulnerability, they play on your weakness. When you first start coming there, they love bomb you. They take you in, you're the greatest person in the world, you are going to change the world, we love you so much, yes. And then next thing you know, you're working as a slave for them.
Right.
That's how this works. And they have doctors, lawyers. Go ahead.
Then it starts off like a good thing. They help you with like communication. Some of the lower level courses I heard were really inexpensive and really help people.
Right.
Yeah.
So they get you in, they hook you in like that.
Well, that's with the Catholic. They pray on the little old ladies that come to church 10 times a day and pray in the church. That's who they covered. You know, they covered the little old ladies that's a widow, or you know, they're really just involved in everything to her is the Catholic Church, and that's where they start. And it's true. That's what they do. And I guess with this people, what's John saying? You know, it's all. To me, what's the word I'm looking for? It's all control. You know, it's about how they can control you, how they can, you know, like you said, they'll be your best friend, they'll give you the best love. But yeah, I can see that exactly. You got to be smart. You got to common sense will go a long way in something like this. I think with a lot of people, first and foremost, you got to educate yourself with definitely all the bad religion that is out there. So
yeah, and Indigo. This what you're talking about here is basically correct. You can't take your volunteer time as a deduction, but you can take, you know, money that you spend for uniforms, out-of-pocket expenses that you donate to a nonprofit. You know, I was, you know, I volunteered with a number of nonprofits when I was working with the police departments, and I couldn't take the time that I volunteered, but any money that I gave to it, any services I rendered to it, but just the volunteer work itself wasn't considered a deduction.
Right.
And T, one of our good friends, she's from Perth, Australia, good friend of the channel. We love T to death. She says that you've even got to salute Tom Cruise's dog.
Really?
I've heard that too. I've heard that. I heard it was Dave Miscavige. Maybe both of them.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's how bad it is. Tom Cruise literally got brought on stage at one of their big international events, given a gold medal that was the size of a dinner plate, you know, and figure that it's on the 4'3" tall frame of Tom Cruise. It looked like it was at least the size of, you know, a serving tray.
Right.
And David Miscavige, who is the new leader of is the current leader of Scientology, got up there and explained how Tom Cruise had done more for Scientology, more for saving the world than anyone else in Scientology. And you got all these people that are working 80 hours a week, and sometimes even more than that. They're sitting there like, wait a minute, I'm getting paid less than $50 a week, throwing my life away, helping this out, going everywhere that you tell me to, doing everything that you tell me to do. But he's more important because he does movies.
Right.
So yeah. Right. And I think it's more about the fact of he was more of a recruitment officer than anything else.
Right. So, exactly. Like an ambassador for them. He's a guy that they're gonna, because he's famous, people are gonna listen to a guy like him. That's the perfect guy to put in anything for if you're gonna do something. You put what people like, the person they like, the fans of that, and hopefully when he speaks that he'll get hundreds of thousands of people at a given time at a rally to come over, which is, it's a very effective tool, and it does work. So I see that how they operate very smartly and very smugly at the same time. So,
and I think that was one of the moments that actually started pushing people away from Scientology was, and T's saying it perfectly, it was very insulting to the members of the Sea Org and to the public members of Scientology that were devoting so much time, money, and effort to Scientology, and they're basically saying it doesn't matter. Let's see, Goizer Mass. Yeah, but in my mind, anything Scientology does for people has much value, in my honest opinion. Well, you got to think about it, Goizer Mass. What do they do? I mean, they went down to Florida after the hurricane and knee-deep water and literally got down on their knees so it looked like they were in water up to their chest, pulling a little tiny inflatable raft around and giving out bottled water to people who didn't need it. That's the thing. is that, show me what they actually do, what they have done for people. I can't, in all the time that I've been researching Scientology, I can't show one thing that they've actually done that's improved the world.
Right.
All I see is a vacuum sucking resources
Exactly.
and everything else from people.
Well, let me address this if you don't mind, John. Here, Pocky, listen. If you're a man, what do you look like? What's your real name? If you're a man, why do you hide behind a mic? Why do you have a fake screen? Don't even preach to me, pal, because you could never endure or be any type of close of a man that I could be. Second of all, if that's what you have to go around and tell people my wife's a prostitute, go at it, because you're just an idiot to even think that. You wish would you want her and you can't afford her? Is that what you're wishing for? Is that where we're going with this? Because you're an idiot for even making that statement.
Just because you throw it out there that if he doesn't address what you say, then it's true, then that shows you just how little brain power you have. So I mean, you can go on over there and kiss the butt of someone else, and let them sit there and dog you for an hour or two and thank you for that super chat. But you go right ahead, keep spending your money just so that you get what you say on the screen for a few seconds. Go right ahead.
Following John's word, you get really far with that one.
Yeah. How about we'll give you a Stuttering John statement. Thanks for the $2.
Thank you for the $2. His boat's named that. Thanks for the $2.
Yep. There you go. And I mean, this is indicative of how they've been doing things and how they are. If you have a mental problem, there's a lot of issues that are going on. Mischief, thank you. Pocky, if you want to, you come on over to my chat. All right.
Poe, I'm saving up for a boat. I need the super chats, please.
Yeah. Well, Pocky, if you don't come over here to my chat, you're not a man. And everything that's being said about you is true as well.
Exactly. Well, here's the thing, it's funny because to be noticed, he has to pay to send us messages because he knows I'm not going to respond to anything. So you know what? I don't know who's winning here, but I think I'm winning as long as you're paying. So thank you.
And I don't know which of you two that he came from, but Goizer Mass actually became a new member of your channel. So welcome to the family there, Goizer. We're happy. And everybody say howdy to our good friend Marjan. Marjan sent me a chat today. I'm not going to break the news on it, but she's got a huge YouTuber that's got like 1 million followers.
Wow.
That is going to be in Arizona, going to meet up with Marjan. And I think it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be great for her channel. I am so happy for her. She has been such a good person. And I tell you what, Joey, Marjan, originally from Iran, came to the United States. Husband is if I remember correctly, he's a retired member of the United States Navy. Just amazing people. Just they're really good. She sends me a ton of links for things throughout the week. Got her own channel. She's just a really good person.
Congratulations.
Let's see, Dusty. That was just people spamming Dusty. That's the name of the game around here. So, All right. Well, let's get back into this. Basically, as it goes, the Scientology, one of their things is our goal is to be able to work with the community on community activities, help the city, help the people in the community to survive better. Yeah, buying up businesses and closing them down and leaving the buildings vacant is really helping the community to survive. And that's from Ben Shaw, Director of External Affairs for Scientology. I think we have accomplished that in a lot of ways with a lot of people. Right. Yeah, Lisa McPherson's a great example of how you've accomplished that. Some remain unconvinced and sometimes sordid. Some remain unconvinced, and the sometimes sordid details surrounding the death of Lisa McPherson have fed their anxieties. The death of Lisa McPherson reaffirms what we heard 20 years ago was true, and I have not heard or seen anything to make me think they have changed. Clearwater's mayor, Rita Garvey, who won a 4th term last year over an opponent backed by Scientologists. Well, let me tell you, we know with Mark Bunker, their reach and their influence is getting out there because they were able to finally unseat Mark Bunker, who was one of the only people fighting Scientology on the city council for Clearwater. Let's see, 4th term, they may be here, but I'm not going to accept it. I refuse to meet with them. Certainly her progression within Scientology, Miss McPherson gave more to the church than average Americans donate to traditional churches. In the past 2 years of her life, she paid $97,000 for Scientology courses with names like Wall of Fire and New Life Rundown. Payments amounted to 40% of her earnings.
Wow.
So she was making like 200 grand a year, and they were taking 40% of it. So, and and I'm gonna leave on that one because it just keeps going on and on. But one of the things I want to talk about is, and you don't see it in other things, is the what happened with the coroner's reports and things like that.
Right.
And the best one I found that reports this is actually on Wikipedia about Lisa McPherson, and it says this is in the Lisa McPherson's death, suspicious death portion on Wikipedia. Coroner's report and review. First coroner's report. On December 5th, 1995, Lisa McPherson's autopsy was conducted by an assistant medical examiner, Robert Davis. Davis never completed McPherson's autopsy report because he was asked to resign from his position. Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
He was asked to resign from his position before he could conclude the autopsy report on Lisa McPherson.
Wow.
The report identified McPherson's cause of death as basically a pulmonary embolism in the left pulmonary artery. And he goes on to say that this was caused by bed rest and severe dehydration, ruling the manner of death as undetermined. The report also identified multiple bruises and abrasion on the nose, lesions, and insect bites that appeared to be consistent with that of a cockroach. All right. This is insane. This is the kind of stuff you see from someone like what you would see with POWs from Vietnam,
right,
or in other wars, where they're basically confined. They strap them down to beds, all these different things. They don't feed them. They don't give them water. And they get attacked by insects. They have lesions on their body. They have infections that build, bed sores, those kinds of things. And this is someone who is supposed to be a free spirit that the church is supposedly taking care of. And this is what they found on her body. The autopsy report was completed by Davis's supervisor, medical examiner Joan Wood. On January 1st, 1997, this is little over a year later, that Wood appeared on the news program Inside Edition and stated that the autopsy showed McPherson's condition had deteriorated slowly, going without fluids for 5 to 10 days, was underweight, had cockroach bites, and was comatose for 24 to 48 hours before she passed.
Wow.
Scientology's legal team proceeded to sue Wood to gain access to her files, including tissue, organ, and blood samples from McPherson's body. Why is a church suing the medical examiner for these kinds of things?
Right.
This
doesn't make sense.
No, that, most of the time someone passes away. This is the kind of thing that you'd see out of like one of those big non-government organizations, one of those big, huge corporations, where you find out that their pesticides been killing people and giving them cancer for 30 years. So what do? They go out and they sue everybody who gets cancer that could have been caused by their pesticide and basically bankrupt them and shut them up. That's the kind of thing that you'd see there.
That's very true. Yeah. What's the big case that's going around now from Camp Lejeune? People, I don't know if that's a Marine base.
Yeah, I've just barely read into that.
It's something water or something over the years or something.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big, huge class action lawsuit going on about that. I've seen articles about it. I literally just haven't had time to get into it. I've never been there.
I just got this in the mail Friday from the lawyers for that representation, because my father was a Marine and and that's where he was at. And he's passed on. I know nothing about it, so I just reading the paperwork. They want me to fill out this paper and represent me for my dad. I'm like, I don't know enough about that to even what the heck you're talking about, So
let's see. It says it's a settlement. Let's see. Well, this is about what's the latest update. I'm just trying to figure out. Let's try sickness. Exposure to contaminants in the water supply at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina from 1953 to 1987 has been linked to a number of health issues, including cancers, leukemias, kidney diseases, and on. Right. So basically, it was the situation where they weren't giving their own officers the, they weren't giving their own people good, clean water to drink. And John No J, there you go. Joey plus Chad, please take IQ test with John. Add up to 140. Hey, okay. I haven't taken one in a few years, but
I would shock them. I promise you that. They would be shocked.
Let's see here. Indigo's Ghost. There is zero excuse for her case not being properly investigated. I would be PO'd if that happened to my family member. And that's what happened. And what happened to the family? They went after him. Yeah. As a matter of fact, in the reports that I was seeing, it says that there was a lawsuit against Dr. Minkoff. And if you know who that name is, Whitney Mills, Lisa McPherson. Now his daughter is on the Real Housewives of New York, I believe it is. Yeah, I mean, she's involved with that stuff. They're making her some celebrity and all that stuff. But the fact is that if what I'm reading is true, he settled out of court for over $100,000 to the McPherson family for wrongful death of Lisa McPherson. Yeah. So, I mean, they're going to say it 100 different ways. Well, this was because it cost us less to settle it out for this.
Sure.
My honest opinion, if I'm not guilty of something, I'm fighting it to the end.
All right, to the door. I'm taking it to the door. Absolutely.
So, let's see, and we'll go into this more. Scientology's legal team proceeded to sue Wood to gain access, including tissue, organ, and blood samples. The lawsuit argued Wood waived any right to keep her records on the case closed when she spoke openly about the case with news reporters. Scientology alleged that the records were needed to start their legal defense. Those records were previously denied to the church because they were part of an ongoing criminal investigation. The St. Petersburg Times contacted 5 medical experts for their opinions about the report. They confirmed Wood's opinions. Scientology responded that the 5 doctors should have been given the entire autopsy report, not just vitreous fluid tests, which pathologists use to determine the composition of blood at the time of death. And then Scientology went on to hire their own forensic pathologists. They hired its own team to oppose Wood's findings, including 2 nationally known forensic pathologists, Dr. Michael Baden, a former chief medical examiner from New York City, and Dr. Cyril Wecht, county coroner from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Baden and Wecht concluded that McPherson died suddenly and unpredictably of a blood clot in her left lung that originated from a knee bruise she suffered in a minor car accident 17 days earlier. Let me ask you, how the hell can they say that?
Right.
I mean, how can you show the path of that blood clot, or are you surmising that it came from that? All right. I mean, and quite honestly, how many times have they found that these hired guns that they bring in as pathological experts are coming in and they're basically saying anything that the people that are paying them want them to say? So, I mean, that's about how much I would literally want to put any proof, any support behind what they've got to say. It's just, to me, it's a load of paid crap. But it goes on. So the scientific evidence was sent to Wood for review. The scientific evidence included research on compounds known as ketones, which people produce when they are dehydrated, findings from body measurement expert hired by the church, hired an expert compared autopsy photos of Lisa McPherson from those taken shortly before the accident. And the expert concluded there was no appreciable weight loss. Okay, sure. A report from Morton Plant Hospital doctor and church officials who saw McPherson just before she entered the Fort Harrison, stating McPherson was already thin with protruding cheekbones. A report by Dr. Robert D. Davis, the pathologist who conducted the autopsy for Wood's office, concluded McPherson's body was out of an average nutritional status. Medical literature and sworn testimony gathered by the church that it says proves the eye fluid samples were improperly handled by Wood's office. Incompletely tested at an independent laboratory and ultimately contaminated. The plaintiff's response was that the chain of custody of evidence was not broken, also corroborated by assistant state attorney. Due to the vitreous fluids test, Baden and Wecht maintained that McPherson was dehydrated. Chemical pathologist Calvin Bant and Werner Spitz concurred on the initial coroner's report in their affidavits. Plaintiff's witness, Dr. William Allen Wu, also testified that ketones need to be present for dehydration in a special case like McPherson, where she was fed proteins and therefore didn't create measurable ketones. The plaintiffs maintained that McPherson did not lose weight to result in 108 pounds with respect to the vitreous fluid. You know, I think that all that's just friggin' word salad. Be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree.
And it says final coroner's report. In light of new scientific evidence provided by Scientology, a review was mandated. The policy stated that the medical examiner will readdress key issues in a case if credible new evidence is presented, regardless of its source. Isn't that amazing? After the review, Wood changed the cause of death from undetermined to an accident. Wood stated McPherson's psychosis and auto accident were major factors to development of a fatal pulmonary embolism.
Interesting.
What are your thoughts on that, Joe?
My main thought would be, first and foremost, is this whole thing is absurd. This whole thing is ludicrous. And anybody that would feed into any stuff like this, you got to question yourself, because everything that you're showing me is there's a lot of holes in it. There's a lot of problems that I see that people overlooked or people covered up, and that's my opinion. So that's strictly my opinion. So
yeah, Chad.
Yeah, I agree with Joey. It's outrageous the lengths that they'll go to.
Right.
My thoughts on it. Having worked numerous homicides, being on a task force with a consortium of departments in our area and working as part of the team that handled the homicides, I've never seen anything like this. Where I've seen things like this happen is in situations, as I said, where, say, a big corporation with billions and billions of dollars has someone pass away on their property. There was an accident at a steel plant. And basically what happened was someone in the plant did something wrong, and you had a guy who was welding on a pipeline that was being fed from the plant. As the guy's welding on this pipeline, someone does something wrong inside the plant. It causes the gases inside that pipe to ignite. It got to the point where he was welding and literally blew him off the pipe, blew him on top of some rigging about 35 feet above that pipe. Wow. We had to go up there, get him down, and as we are en route to go notify his wife that her husband has been killed, the company had sent their security officers to their house to hand her a letter telling her husband had been terminated from the company for failing to follow company policy.
Right.
Believe me, that literally ended up blowing up in their faces huge. There was a big settlement over that. But that's the kind of things that I see with these big companies that are doing nothing more than protecting their bottom line, their profit.
Right.
That's the time I see those kinds of things. I had never seen it in an organization like a religious organization. And here it is. They're claiming that they're out there to save the world. They're out there to save what's going on. Why aren't you going by what the medical examiner has to say instead of bringing in hired guns,
right,
to try to disprove what the experts in your area are saying? And so that tells me right there that it's not about saving the world. It's not about taking care of your members. It's about taking care of the organization and covering for it.
Right.
and it's insulting that an organization calls itself a religion, says it is such a benevolent organization that is there for nothing but to move the world forward and save the world, but then turn around and shit on people who were part of your organization that you did wrong, and they died while they were in your care.
Right. Yeah, it's
just my opinions on that. So
I agree with you 100% on that, John. It's like anything else. It's like, I don't know. Do you realize when you sit here and you talk about they make 70 cents an hour is what most people are saying? Do you know what the United States government pays an inmate per hour to work? Same way like slaves.
Yeah.
26 cents an hour.
Wow.
All right. Wow. They're saying that because they give you food and housing that you should be happy with what you get, right?
That's the pitch. Yeah.
Wow. But let me tell you about another story. I don't know if you've ever heard it. Have you ever heard of the name Paulette Cooper?
No, not offhand. No.
All right. Paulette Cooper. And this will give you another idea of just how benevolent this organization is. Paulette Cooper is an author, journalist. I think, yeah, she is still alive. She's 82 years old. All right. And I believe she lives in New York. But basically, she started doing articles about Scientology, about L. Ron Hubbard, about what was going on with them. Right. And then suddenly, all these things start happening to her. There is a report made that she had made a threat to that she was going to cause a boom boom in a Scientology building. And what happened was the shocking case where they found that Scientology had infiltrated the FBI and had literally planted doctored documents in the files on Paulette Cooper, making it look like she had actually done this stuff. Paperwork, basically threats sent. The letters were the threats, but they didn't have, who said this or anything like that. They had a thumbprint on them. Right. And they found out that what is basically going on, they had hired someone to go in, become her friend. I believe they actually became romantically involved with each other. Right. And during this whole time, this person is trying to convince her to take her own life. She's talking about how her whole world is collapsing, how all this is happening. And this person's like, yeah, if I were you, I'd just end it all. I mean, this is ridiculous that you're putting up with all this stuff. This is supposed to be someone she's having a romantic relationship with. Right. And this is what they're doing. So when it all came out, they had literally, in an effort to go against her, had created this fake threat, infiltrated the FBI in the biggest infiltration that the FBI has ever had. And people went to prison for it. And you know what the church's response was? Didn't have nothing to do with us. That's just zealots overacting.
Right.
All right. That's the benevolent organization that is Scientology.
Yep.
Yep.
So, all right. So, folks, we presented you with information tonight. You think about it. You come to your own decisions. I know what my thoughts are on it. I think I've been very vocal about my thoughts about Scientology.
Very knowledgeable. Thank you.
Sorry to cut you off. I'm impressed how much our Dabbleverse audience knows about Scientology from what they've been saying in the chat.
I'm very impressed with it. So, and Articulate John wants to know if you change clothes
every day, buddy. Every day.
Oh, you're not pooping through the underwear, huh?
Not today. Not today. Had a good day.
Okay. I guess that's just one person does that. So, Chad, you got any closing thoughts for us tonight?
No, like I said, I was really impressed that the Dabbleverse knows a lot about Scientology, and I had a lot of fun, and it was a good review about, we can't forget about Lisa McPherson. Yeah, it was very important. We got to keep our eyes on these guys.
Well, Chad, you remember it when we were in Clearwater, we saw the brick that they put in place as a memorial to Lisa McPherson there.
That's true.
And then we also saw the video where Aaron went over there and repainted the brick to make sure that nobody forgets about her. So,
yeah,
it's
very nice.
Joey, let me tell you, there's a park down there that is supposed to be a public park that Scientology has the right to say who can and cannot go into that park.
It's downtown, I believe. I think I know which one you're talking about. Yes.
It was crazy that
the park they kicked Mark Bunker off because he was sitting on a bench.
Yeah, they have the bus depot right around the corner for them too, where all the buses pull in and different routes they go from that downtown location. It's right around the corner for them, actually.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Dusty. Yeah, I've been looking into a lot of those. Dusty sent me a link of all the organizations they have in the world. So, Joey, closing thoughts on this?
Well, I think in life you should very thoroughly investigate before you join any church organization. If anything in life, you got to be very aware of what could possibly look up things, do investigation on yourself about what's going on with these people. See if they're been in the media to say bad things against them. You got to be aware, people. You just got to be aware. I mean, some people are just they want this kind of stuff, but I would think majority of people would be smart enough to say this is wrong and let's find out the truth on this. So, and I agree with that. Justice is always the right justice is always will be first in my book. So I'm always even when I was doing wrong, if I got caught, I manned up to it and I corrected it. So
Yeah. That's the thing is that take responsibility for what you've done. Don't play these games. Oh man, Chad's getting a lot of love out of the chat tonight, isn't he?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, who was it? They said he's the biggest thing in the Dabbleverse, and I was just wondering if they meant his presence there or physically. So,
Like I said, Paul, I am saving up for a boat. So
some of these guys that are in this that are in your chat because a lot of them are not what you think they are. So
I know.
Yeah.
Gotta watch.
one of them.
I was warned about the Dabbleverse people before I joined up.
Poppy apparently knows where I live, and I'll meet you any place, anytime, buddy. You want to come over? Let me know. We'll talk about it. But don't ever think I'm afraid of anything because I'm not.
Yeah, it's insane, folks. My view on this is anytime that you are involving yourself in what would be considered or thought of as a religion, the main things I think about, what are you getting for what you're putting into it? Are they asking you to pay them before they'll do anything for you, or are they freely giving it to you? And then ask if you can donate, and if you can't, that's okay, because they have services to help you. All right. I mean, most churches, if you're financially insolvent, they have food drives. They have ways of trying to help you.
Yes.
All right. Churches don't demand that you pay them for their services.
No.
All right. Religions don't demand that you constantly feed into their financial situation. They are supposed to be benevolent. They are supposed to be giving. They are supposed to want you to succeed, to excel in life. They are supposed to want to be there for the betterment of you and your spiritual life. Any church that isn't doing that, how can you call them a church? How can you call them a religion? How can you call them anything more than a cult or a business that is there to suck money out of you? Right. And why would a religion try to hide from things that has happened instead of facing them like any grown adult should do, or any positive organization would do? All right. That's the kind of thing that big corporate monsters do. They hide, they shift the blame, they blame everyone else. And it's all about protecting their money and their power. Exactly. So before you get yourself involved in something, just make sure you check it out. Because we don't want the next Lisa McPherson. We don't want the next Whitney Mills. We don't want the next Paulette Cooper coming out. We want you to have a successful life that is positive in everything that you do. And as always, folks, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being part of this. We value everything that you say and you do. And as always, life is short. You get one shot. Make it count.